I am doing this series to help people understand how I do backgrounds. Unlike other videos that you come across about backgrounds, I'm only casually going over the mechanics, as that is what every other video on the subject covers. My videos will be a deep dive into the meat and bones of each background that I cover. I will also add how I do things in my game to give other storytellers ideas they can use for their own games. There is nothing that I despise more than a player telling me that they are just going to use their herd to get blood they need, so I'm going to start off this series with herd. The mechanics as written says, you have cultivated a group of vessels from whom you can feed without concern. You can use them to perform basic services, although they are neither as tightly controlled nor as loyal as retainers, if needed to build your herd as a combination of weak and average mortals. See Mortal Templates in the book, page 185. You can slake your herd, rating and hunger, each week without a roll. This benefit can be shared among more than one vampire. Overfeeding endangers your herd, potentially dropping the rating as members die or flee. I have broken down the description into sections that I will cover. The first section will be the first sentence. You have cultivated a group of vessels from whom you can feed without concern. So, what does this mean? Simple enough, it means that the vessels you have within your herd fall into the following categories. The first category is they know that you are a vampire. They do as you say and allow you to drink from them at a whim. The character may have a rapport with the vessel, that favors get done for them so that the character can feed from them when needed and ensure their secrets are kept. And then there are those that are addicted to the kiss. The feeling of being fed upon feels so good that the vessel craves it. This is especially good for the kindred with the predator type siren who feeds during the act of making love. The victim believes that the sex is that good. Kindred with lingering kiss also find it easy to have herds because the addictive properties of the kiss. The last group is the other unique reasons a player can come up with. An example of this could be the kindred as a cult leader that convinces the vessel that drinking of blood is a special ritualistic part of the membership. And players can be pretty resourceful at times, so as long as you can buy into it, this is the category for it. Blood dolls. Blood dolls are a type of herd vessel that falls into all three categories at once. They believe in vampires. They are addicted to the thought of being fed from, although some actually are being used as such, and the blood doll can be assumed to be part of a vampire fan cult. Like all herd, there's a danger of being exposed and breaking the masquerade, but these are the easiest herd to gather because they are looking for it. As such, they are often watched by elders and hunters for that very reason. Many a story has been created around the blood doll and those looking for that easy meal. The next section to cover is you can use them to perform basic services, although they are neither as tightly controlled nor as loyal as retainers. So using one of the three categories that we previously went over, you can have your vessel perform basic services. These can include things like let the kindred crash at their place, get the kindred a ride someplace, set up a dinner reservation at a restaurant, another menial task. Following the category that the vessel fits into this is important. A character would definitely not want to stay at the day at a vessel's home that does not have any knowledge of the character being a vampire. Now keep in mind that the vessels are not retainers or allies, although they could eventually become one. As a member of the herd, though, there's only so much a vessel would do. Those would fit into category 1 might lie or risk going to jail for that vampire that is feeding from them and fear that retribution or betraying them would put them in danger. But a vessel from category 2 might think the risk is definitely not worth it. No matter how good a booty call is, it's not worth going to jail for sure. Another danger is being exposed unintentionally, as an underused vessel might start looking for their fix elsewhere and commenting to the wrong people what they're looking for. The next section to cover is how to build your vessel. Creating a vessel from a herd is much different than creating a character. Give them a name, a basic background such as age, what they look like, where they work, and their occupation. And be sure to include the important facts like if they have family. The next thing to decide on is how you will feed from them. Again, this fits into one of those three categories. If they know you're a kindred, you can just call them up, tell them it's time to feed. Or it could require a little Netflix and chill. This is important because it establishes a time frame for your feeding and a bit about the relationship that you have with this vessel. Lastly, Based on basic background, have a quick template ready if you use the vessel for anything more than feeding. The next section is the basic mechanic. Each dot that you have in herd equals how much blood you can consume without hunting or rolling for dice per week. This is simple enough to understand that one dot in herd, you have 1 to 3 vessels. Once per week you get one and feed from one for 1 blood pool point. What if you want to feed more than 1 point? This is where I allow the tracking of vessels and why at 1 dot with 3 vessels you only gain 1 blood per week. Assume from each blood that you gain from a mortal they take 1 aggravated damage. To save complicated details, consider healing 1 aggravated from feeding takes 1 week without the vessel exerting themselves. If you have 1 vessel, you'd have to track when you fed from the last to not cause them more injuries before the vessels recovered. With 3 vessels, you can do so without tracking, as you can alternate weekly from 1 vessel to another. If you take your time to track the feeding from the vessels, I, as a storyteller, allow the player to take more blood than normal because they are maintaining that week's healing. An example of this is if your character feeds from vessel A and the following week drinks 2 dots by drinking 1 from vessel B and C the following week. That character will be able to drink from vessel A on the 3rd week. I figure if a player wants to track their feeding from a herd, they can benefit from it. Lastly in this section is coterie herd. As herd can be shared amongst more than 1 vampire, a herd can be used by a coterie. The rules still work the same, so if a coterie has 5 kindred in it, and the coterie has 1 dot in herd, only 1 blood pool point for an entire week is good for 1 kindred in that coterie. And the final section is endangering the herd. Especially if you do not track your feedings from your herd, you risk overfeeding from your herd. Doing so causes grave damage to a mortal. As stated earlier, 1 hunger sated is equal to 1 aggravated damage to a vessel. If not given a full week to heal, that damage is increased by another aggravated damage, leaving that vessel with 2. Now the healing process has to begin again, and now the wait is 2 weeks. A herd member, especially if they do not know the person is a vampire and draining their blood, might think the risk isn't worth it and avoid the character, making feeding from them troublesome. If they do not know the character is feeding from them but has risked their well-being by drinking too much, might try to escape by moving or even worse, looking for help with dealing with their dilemma. If there is no care for your herd, they can leave, die, refuse to allow you to be around them. These instances will definitely drop your herd. If you have herd 2 and lose enough vessels to only have 3 members, your herd rating drops down to 1. How I handle buying the herd background. If you spend the points, they are yours. I will not take them from you. If you lose herd members and drop down a dot, you will lose access to the 2nd dot of herd until you find replacement vessels to get your numbers back up to the range of your inaccessible dot. And then I allow you to use that dot again. I have 2 ways of buying a dot in herd. The first way is you can spend the XP and buy your next dot of herd. And then role-playing, gain the herd members. Then you have access to those number of vessels that you have, equal to the lowest number of the next level. The second way is by gaining vessels into the next level. So if you're level 1 and you go to level 2 and you have 5 herd members but have not paid for that 2nd dot yet, you do not have access to the 2nd dot until you pay for it. At character generation, you begin with the lowest number of vessels for that level of herd purchased. This leaves plenty of room for roleplay to increase. And my last point, I believe that kindred's interaction with their herd is very important. Treating them as a mechanic for X amount of blood per week is okay when it's important to the story, but a relationship should be noted for when it's important. Issues such as a risk of losing a vessel due to outside circumstances can be a good subplot in a story. I hope you enjoyed this and get a little information from it. I'll be making more further backgrounds soon.